Hello, Assalamu alaikum, good evening. Welcome to another episode of Health is Wealth. I am your host, Shabnam Riaz. Okay, today we're going to talk about a really interesting subject. It's something totally different. We're going to talk about holistic healing. And some people are going to be familiar with that term. Some people are not. It is something that is really interesting. And we're going to talk about holistic healing and nutrition as well, and the role food plays with everything, and how much of a link it all has to do with our health. So we're very happy to have with us in the studios today Nadia Faruqi, who's a wellness specialist and nutritionist. Thank you very much, Nadia, for joining us here today.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, right. So now, before we go on to our other things and speak to our guests, we're going to have a look at this report.
What is well-being? Well-being is often described as the state of being comfortable, healthy, or happy. People who enjoy high levels of well-being are described as flourishing. In this context, flourishing means that the person enjoys feelings of happiness, contentment, and curiosity, and is able to engage fully with what is going on around them. Flourishing also means functioning well in the world. The person experiences positive relationships, has some control over their life, and has a sense of purpose. Well-being, therefore, isn't simply the opposite of ill-being. Just looking at what causes distress won't necessarily help us to identify the factors that give rise to well-being. Many researchers in the field have worked over many years to be able to more closely define well-being, with many agreeing that it is a global assessment of a person's quality of life, according to his or her own chosen criteria. Understanding the role of our environments, and in particular our built environment, is an important area of research, as we spend up to 90% of our time either inside buildings or vehicles. If we can design and construct buildings that improve our well-being, why wouldn't we?
Okay, welcome back now, Nadia. Holistic wellness, as I said in the beginning of the program, some people will know what it is, some people won't. What exactly are we talking about?
Okay, so we're talking about wellness as a whole, and that involves, for us it involves mind, body, and soul. So it's not just limited to our physicality. It has to do with how to manage the monkey mind, and also, how to take care of the spirit.
Okay, so, right, so that is a concept where as you just said, the importance of thinking of everything working together and not things in different compartments, as we usually do. And in fact, if you look at sort of things nowadays with people talking and articles or whatever, you'll understand that people are realizing that the mental health or the emotional situation that you're in at the moment, or the emotional wellness, is something that is really, it can wreak havoc on a person physically. So how is this being received worldwide and in Pakistan as well? What does that look like?
Well, I think worldwide we have, there's been a movement for a while now, and it's kind of getting more, and it's taking up, people are getting more and more passionate about health and wellness in that in that totality. So there is definitely an interest, an understanding of it. People are looking for tools. In Pakistan, it's starting to come up as well. But I do feel there's, we need to instill the awareness and the understanding, and a lot of the practices that we're bringing back are, they're ancient wisdom. That's old wisdom that we let go of in order to become modern. In post-industrialization and everything that happened post, we let go of a lot of wisdom that is still very, very much needed in this day and age.
Right.
So we're just bringing that back, in the world, and it's actually, the movement is coming from the East. If you look at yoga, it's coming from the East, and the West has taken it in full force, and they're breaking it down to, details of what it's doing on this, on a cellular level, to the bodies, to the mind, and how it's feeding the soul. So I believe it's a big movement happening already.
Right. Okay. So how does a person become a holistic therapist? What exactly is involved?
I think for me, it was my own personal journey.
Right.
I remember at some point I felt I was always very athletic and a gym goer. And at some point I had a medical condition, which left me completely disempowered, because I felt that there were a lot of answers, that there were a lot of questions unanswered. And a lot of intervention that was unnecessary. So that's when my journey started.
Okay.
And I got into yoga in 2002 in New York, which is, I believe, is the best place for any old or new ideas that have some sort of potency to take birth.
Right.
So I started wellness from both those, I went to an activist school for nutrition, which was not a school just for, we didn't just discuss calories and protein, carbohydrates, and fats. We were talking about what's going on in the industry.
Right.
There's politics in there as well. There's why is the government subsidizing sugar and making kids obese, and so it was a more well-rounded approach.
Okay.
So as I was working,
A much more factual approach.
I would think so. Yeah, I would think
okay.
so.
So that's very interesting. You're talking about empowering. You said, you were in a condition where you felt that you weren't empowered. So, this is so important for people to understand that, there are things that you can do to empower yourself.
Absolutely.
And as you spoke about nutrition, I think, the basic thing starts there. I mean, we're very worried about what we're doing with our cars and what oil we're putting in and how we, get carrying up with everything.
Sure.
And when it comes to ourselves, why are we so okay with putting substandard stuff inside of us and then running to doctors and then thinking why we're so ill? So if we're talking about nutrition, Nadia, give us some sort of basics as to, what we should be doing, and especially culturally-wise, living in Pakistan.
I think if you start looking at nutrition as preventative medicine,
that's amazing.
You kind of wire yourself in that way.
Now imagine many people, that something would be a completely new concept. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so once you wire yourself in that way, then you're obviously in search of tools.
Okay.
You're in search of the education, the wisdom behind it. As far as, I don't understand why people are getting away from our natural cultural diets. There's no need to.
There's no need to.
There's no need to. I mean, if you appreciate other cuisines, there's nothing wrong with it.
Yeah.
But we have a very rich culture and a very rich cuisine. I think what's happening recently is that a lot of the processing that has been done to foods is making us ill.
Right.
And to me, illness is many things. It's something as simple as a lethargic person. There's I've called that poor health, weight gain. Sometimes there's a ton of inflammation in your gut and you think you're just fat. That is all coming from not eating pure foods.
Right.
And, if you kind of go back in history, our premise was to eat in season, to eat fresh, to eat in moderation. And, so I think we've lost that wisdom and we need to just bring it back. We don't need to follow the West. The West is following us, actually.
Imagine.
Yeah.
Because you get so many things, when they're talking about like milk, doodh haldi, milk and turmeric.
Bilkul, exactly.
And then they're talking about chia seeds.
Bilkul.
Then they're talking about other seeds that you will have here widely available at all sorts of markets, and you don't even give them a second glance.
That's true.
Until
and
they...
our yakhnis,
Exactly.
that's a very therapeutic. It's a very rich, very mineralized broth. There was a big fad. Within the healing community, we were asking people to drink broth, slow cooked broth, which was excellent once again in minerals, calcium, collagen, all of those things that we are looking for sort of cosmetic stuff. I mean, collagen anti-aging, and
Right.
then minerals like calcium, magnesium, chondroitin. You don't need to pop pills for chondroitin, it's in your bone broth. You know, so there's,
Imagine.
and it's
Yeah.
all old stuff.
And it's all right. Okay. Now, something else we spoke about, before we were going to record, and that was about fats as well. And I thought that, was really interesting. The good fats. Well, what are those, and what should we be, incorporating back into our diet?
So that's one of my favorite topics because it's a little bit of a controversial topic, and people are starting to understand. They're starting to be aware of how we were brainwashed and now what the repercussions were,
Right.
and how to undo that.
Okay.
So like I told you before as well, purity is key. So, one of the things that happened, we denatured our fats.
Okay.
Margarine came into being. It's hydrogenated fat. So it literally gets processed like plastic in our bodies.
Oh.
And therefore it's collecting plaque in our arteries, and it's, causing more harm than good. But that gave our good fats a bad name. Even with milk, the milk is processed to a point where it's no longer milk anymore. So people are lactose intolerant. People, people develop allergies. They're not able to give. There's no pure milk in the market. No, in the world, it's hard to get raw milk. Back in our part of the world, we would just get somebody to deliver the milk. We would, put it on low flame, boil it till the bacteria was cleared, and then you have the milk. And that's what's going on in the modern, in the West now, because they believe that the more you process the milk, the more you denature it.
And you're making it harmful.
You're making it harmful.
Okay.
When you denature any, pure food,
Right.
it doesn't have the same positive effect. It starts giving you a negative effect.
Right. So, like you spoke about ghee. A person having, and I think ghee is clarified butter, is it?
It's clarified butter.
Okay. So, for many people that would be sort of, oh, okay, we were always told to stay away from ghee, because it's not good for your heart or it's not good for your cholesterol. So for a person who has high cholesterol levels or triglyceride levels, or how about them? Are they okay with that?
Okay, first of all, triglycerides are high levels of triglyceride levels are caused by sugars.
Okay.
They have nothing to do with fats.
Okay.
And that becomes an issue for the heart. If your triglyceride levels are high, you're more prone to a heart attack than if your cholesterol levels were high. So within that, within those tests, they're marking. So there's triglycerides, there's cholesterol. Within the cholesterol, there's the good cholesterol and the bad cholesterol. So we bundled it up in all in one.
Okay.
And what's happening is the good cholesterol is necessary for the body to be able to rebuild the cells of something like your lungs, which is made out of 100% saturated fat. Your brain, which is 85% saturated fat, which is why a lot of people are a bit, scared of eating our what's our
The mother's,
the mother's
brain,
yes so it's an exotic food for us, but all of a sudden people are very concerned about raising their cholesterol. Having said that, so you clean up your diet and start giving yourself pure foods, you would not have a problem in terms of your health. You also need to know about good and bad fats, and in the results, good and bad cholesterol. There are special tests done to show that. And also, more recently, the threshold for cholesterol which was much lower. So all of a sudden, this is a new, this is a newer concept now, because people are understanding, that people, nutritionists around the world, they're realizing the ill effects of a low-fat diet, which is why their research has been to, their results have shown that it was a disservice to our global community.
And imagine there are so many people, because this is such an eye-opener. There's so many people who, especially in our part of the world, when we think about diet or something like that, we think of, restraining the fat. And we think of, okay, boiled food, steamed vegetables and everything. And then even if you have that for a little while, after that you just feel like, oh God, you can't go on, you know, like you're starving, you're
Yeah.
in starvation. So that's really important.
And also just to know that when you are having a carb, you know, if your carbs are high, then your sugar is high. As a result, the insulin levels are, you know, they go through highs and lows. So
Yeah.
the peak and the drop is
Yeah.
more dramatic with, you know, processed carbs specifically.
Right.
You know, you feel a dip in energy and then you want a cup of tea. A stimulant to kind of bring the energy back, and that's also deceptive because the body is saying, you know, I gave you that peak of the sugar that you had,
Right.
and now as a result of, you know, the insulin getting tired of doing its job, it's kind of dropped again. So, and to prevent that, you go into
So it's
caffeine.
basically intelligent eating, isn't it?
It's intelligent eating, absolutely, and
To
absolutely.
sort of, like you said, the preventive medicine and nutrition is also the preventive process of your body playing tricks on you. So you know you've got it under control.
The body
before
does not play tricks on you. The body is very honest. You play tricks on the body.
Okay.
I feel, because I feel the body is a fantastic machine. It's very telling. You just have to wire yourself in listening to the body.
Okay.
You have to, you know, sort of make those internal notes and say, you know, this didn't suit me so well. What
Because
did
everyone is going to be different.
Everyone, yes, that's the other thing.
Yeah.
Constitutionally, you and I are different.
Right.
If I check your pulse, I can tell you you know, you have more earth or water or fire, earth, you know, whatever the combination that may
Really?
be. Yes. So that's the other
Okay,
thing.
That's so fascinating.
Yeah, I mean, there are certain things that we do in general. So both of us need to eat, you know, good fats and not eat processed carbs and have moderate protein in our diets, you know, that kind of a thing. But there are nuances to it too.
Okay.
And it also depends on your lifestyle. So if you have a sedentary lifestyle, you don't need as much, you know, of food.
Of course.
Okay.
Right.
And then if you have a pretty active lifestyle, you have to be even more careful in terms of what you're putting in your body, because you know how the energy that you will be left with is then what you have to deal
Tell
with.
us more about the earth, water, and the fire. I thought that's really interesting.
You know, that comes from Ayurveda.
Okay.
It comes from Ayurveda, and Ayurveda is an ancient science of, you know, originating from India. And like Chinese medicine, there's your basic nature has elements, and you're also working with the earth's elements. So keeping certain things in mind, keeping those things in mind, you prescribe yourself a diet.
Okay.
So if somebody who is more earth, they could do really well with raw vegetables.
Okay.
Somebody who's more vata or air, for them, you know, they're not able to digest airy stuff. The reason why I say airy stuff is because, you know, there's a certain there's a certain amount of fiber. If I break it down and make it, you know, give you a more nutritional sort of term for it, there's a certain amount of fiber that you have to break down, and it creates wind for people who are generally more vata or air
Okay.
to begin with. So they need more grounding foods.
So that's where you have the sort of like, you know, this doesn't agree with me as much as this
Yes,
does, and
yes.
you know what foods.
Yes.
Basically, you learn from experience what things are suiting you and what aren't. either.
Sure, or you speak to an expert.
Right.
And if it's an Ayurvedic expert or if it's a Chinese medicine person, then they will look at your pulse. They'll determine what constitution you are. They'll also look at what ailments you have. And according to that, you know, prescribe supplements and diet and, you know, other lifestyle things.
Fascinating stuff.
Yeah.
Okay, something else that you mentioned that was very important, I thought as well. Cooking oils. Which are the ones we should be using? Which are the ones we should be staying away from?
Okay, so, you know, one of the things that I mentioned to you, ghee has a high smoking point. Okay.
Okay.
So you can cook
And a
with
high
it.
smoking point means?
It doesn't fall apart quickly.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
Okay.
Coconut oil has the same
Right. Okay.
sort of ability to withstand higher heat.
Okay.
So you can use it for frying. Mustard seed oil, which is local to us, pure. When I say pure, I mean, you know, because this everything gets processed in our in around the world now. So pure mustard seed oil is great for frying. We fry up pakoras in it, and it was done that way. You wouldn't. So that's the other one, and then. So the other oil, so for instance, butter is fantastic for you. Desi butter is excellent if it's coming from the right source, meaning cows who have had their natural diets and are living a good life. And then you're getting pure butter. That's actually really good for you. It's a great source of saturated fat again. Having said that, butter falls apart really quickly. So the protein in the butter would burn.
Okay.
With a high flame. So you won't use it to cook with, but you will top your dishes with butter, and it will just melt. Right? Okay. So you would think about smoking points for different oils. Olive oil is a very popular oil to cook with. Having said that, it's a very fragile oil. And a lot of people know that. A lot of people don't know that. Yeah. So ever since people found out that it was a healthier oil, they started to do everything.
Everyone switched to that. Yeah.
Yes.
And cooked everything. There's vegetables and everything.
And it's a very healthy oil. Having said that, it's monosaturated and it's fragile. Right. And it's not monosaturated. Is not going to be, they're different types of fats, right? So one is not the only one that you need in the body. Okay. So it's better to use olive oil as sort of like an addition to salads or whatever things rather than cooking in it. Yes. If you're cooking on high flame, or even medium flame for extended periods of time, don't use olive oil.
Okay. So what happens when it goes past its sort of its point the actually happens to the oil? Does it become harmful?
It becomes harmful. Oh. So that's where the plaque and the cholesterol and
so imagine you're doing something with the intention of getting better nutrition, but because you may not know the actual complexities behind it, you might actually do yourself a disservice. So that is really important. What Nadia is saying, that many people will opt for olive oil for cooking because of its healthy aspect to it, but then, as she said, it's a very fragile oil, so it's best to leave that sprinkle to your salads or afterwards and not use it for cooking. Okay, now Nadia, tell us, the wellness of the mind. We've spoken a lot about nutrition. There's so much we can talk about, but because of constraints of the time of the program, we won't be able to. The wellness of the mind. We see time and time and time and again that people are searching for some sort of, everything is so restless. So you'll have people searching for some sort of peace, some sort of inner satisfaction, contentment. What's going on? What are the sort of the things that we are understanding that are in contradictions with each other?
Well, I guess we have to come to terms with the fact that we have very fast-paced lives. Yeah. We've taken on a lot more in some ways than our ancestors, maybe, or maybe we're stimulated. I think we're stimulated a lot more.
And then we've given ourselves a double whammy by sort of like going away from the natural food and that.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Okay.
So, if just assume that we've covered our nutrition and we're doing great as far as nutrition goes. Okay. And then there's the mind element that comes to it, right? There are many tools. There are many, not many. There's some. I say many because I get fascinated by what's available out there as tools. So what I work with personally is yoga. Right. And yoga for me, I've been practicing for 17 years. I started doing it purely for physical benefits. Okay. What that meant was, as soon as I entered a yoga class and I attended my first yoga class for the first time in my life, I felt like every part of my body woke up. Okay. And it was in alignment with each other versus having sluggish legs and arms are stronger. So it felt more.
And why is that? Sorry to interrupt you. Is that because you're not getting enough oxygen around?
I think it's a combination of breathing well, postures that that make you use or introduce flexibility and stability. And yes, you know, there's a specific kind of breathing that you're doing from your nose with your mouth closed, which oxygenates the body, because it gets mixed, the breath that you take in gets mixed up with nitrogen oxide, and then it's able to oxygenate the body. If you don't do nose breathing, if you breathe from your mouth, you're not able to mix it with nitrogen oxide. So there's chemical reactions that happen in the body that take you to a place where you feel good about yourself.
And that's so basic.
And that's so basic, and that's so great.
Imagine,
I wouldn't call it basic, because it's such an epiphany. So to me, I feel it's something that we're doing such complex. Yes, you're right. Yeah, it is basic in that way.
I meant it in the sense that, it's something we're doing all the time, and if we're not mindful of how we are breathing, then, that again, we're not helping ourselves.
True. I think breath awareness is key. It's the stepping stone. It's literally the stepping stone to mindfulness and awareness, body awareness, mental awareness. It's the key. And the more the more involved I got in pranayama, which is breathing techniques, the more I realized that you channel your breath to get to a place of optimal energy and to balance.
That's fascinating.
Yeah, to balance our constitution and also to be able to balance the mind. And and to also have clearer thinking.
Okay, right.
So,
what about anger management? Because we see that a lot on the rise.
Yeah.
Social situations, financial restraints, frustrations, whatever. We see a lot of that on the rise in our part of the society as well. How could you sort of give some tips for our viewers who are watching, and especially, what is unfortunate is now that we're in Ramzan, many people will sort of, you see a lot of road rage and people actually getting more angrier than they would have been if they weren't fasting. So that's a bit sad. So how can you get them to manage their anger?
So I would call that stress management, right?
Okay.
In general.
Right.
It just manifests as anger sometimes. But
right.
It's really a collection of stress.
Okay.
And the reason why I'm here and doing this with you guys, for you guys, is because I believe that these tools of with yoga, in yoga, the pranayama specifically helps to clear these imbalances. So I would call anger a manifestation of excessive fire.
Okay.
Right? So one needs to balance the fire because that same fire is necessary, and it gives you the drive to do things, to get things done.
Right.
And yet, if it's off balance, it makes you angry. So literally, on a very physiological, in a very physiological way, the practices that we do balance your, the imbalances, like anger being one of them, and naturally you end up managing your stress because stress is going to be there in your environment if you like it or not.
Exactly.
So
it's how you're reacting to it, how you are.
Yes, what tools you have.
Yeah.
To to kind of take life, take life on, and and within that, the mindfulness means you just come alive in a moment. And when you come alive in that moment, there's no past, there's no future. And a lot of anxiety comes from that because we're planning.
Future, yeah.
So
Okay.
and that's where, the meditative practices come in as well.
Right. Now, for those people who are like excessively worrying, and they're always in the state of, okay, they're doing something at the moment, but their mind is on the 5 or 6 other things that they have to do, maybe later in the day, maybe later in the week, maybe later in the year. But things will be on their mind, and they're constantly exhausting themselves.
Exactly.
Thinking about so much. How do you tackle those individuals, and how do you treat them?
I teach those individuals. You know, I give them techniques. I teach them the tools, the techniques to be able to then, you know, so that they're able to be the boss of their minds versus the minds bossing them around. I come from a similar background. I'm, you know, I'm a thinker. I'm a creative person. I'm also a mother. You know, I'm in multiple roles. And I'm passionate about things. But as soon as the mind takes over and starts to create fears and this and just drama, I'm able to now tell myself, this is drama. This is not you. You know. So separating the mind, the mind's chatter from what reality is. That means coming back to the present moment,
Right.
and realizing that it's okay. What's in the past is in the past. What's in the future, I can plan it. But you
then
know,
again,
yeah.
you never know. Man proposes, God disposes.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think one becomes very clear in channelizing the mind. And that's what these tools do. You just don't realize it. You just, you know, as a practitioner, I would say to you that I practiced and I practiced and I practiced and I realized, I'm changing as a person.
Right.
Nothing in my environment is different. I don't have
Change.
less stress. I may have
Right.
more stress. I may have more unpleasant situations, but
But you're able to deal with it
I'm able to
now.
cope with them.
Okay, so for people who are in Pakistan and they want to, you know, get holistic treatment, how many practitioners are there here? Are they easy to find, or is it something you can find on YouTube or some sort of?
I think there's, you know, the
books?
world. Yes, so I know that in Pakistan people have started doing yoga. There are teachers out here. There are people who are very passionate about it. They believe in it. They're bringing it to Pakistan. But I do feel that it's still a newer market.
Okay.
In comparison to what's going on in the world in regards to holistic health. But I feel that if one sincere person, you know, says, I'm going to dedicate my life to holistic wellness, to getting people well, and they used our ancient wisdom, and they use, you know, start educating people, and they, you know, teach them discipline, it can turn around very, very quickly, because we do have certain roots that are already there. It's just a matter of, you know, sort of education, watering the plant, basically.
Okay.
Which is what it's about right now.
Right. Yeah, that's fascinating. Okay. Anxiety as well. You hear a lot about people, you know, suffering from anxiety. So breathing techniques, yoga, and also your holistic treatment as well. How can a person benefit from that?
So anxiety in particular can be dealt with through breathing techniques. Anxiety can also be dealt with through physical practice. So when you're breathing well, you're oxygenating, you're decongesting the body. You're bringing
decongesting.
yes, you're literally decongesting, detoxing the organs. In yoga, that's what you're meant to be doing, and bringing in fresh oxygen, and then, you know, sort of clearing out the residue from your body. You're naturally going to be in a better place where the anxiety leaves you. Okay, that's why it's a practice. It's meant to be a regular practice.
Okay.
And it's not meant to be done once a month. So you need to be disciplined enough to say, even if you have tight schedules,
Right.
I will dedicate 15 minutes to either movement that involves my breath. Okay. The way I'm telling you, with breathing through the nose and keeping your mouth softly closed, and
Okay.
taking fuller, deeper breaths that are slightly controlled.
Okay. Is there a sort of a time that you should be counting to? How many seconds you should be breathing in? In these exercises, something you can tell? Is there something you can share with our viewers?
Yes. So in pranayama specifically, with the school that I practice with, we do inhale. The ratio of inhalation to exhalation is 1 to 2.
Ah.
So if your inhale is 4 counts, then your exhale is 8 counts. But that's very specific to pranayama. I do believe that there's a lot more that we need to clear through the exhale. So if you're not doing a ratio, because you're not doing pranayama per se, when you're breathing optimally, just make sure you clear the exhale. Make sure your inhale is not just till here. You take in the inhale and you're filling up the body. It's almost like filling up a balloon. Right. So you're filling up a balloon from all sides, breathing through the breath. It's you can just imagine that it feels like filling up a balloon. So you're not leaving any corner empty of breath. And I think one of the things that people get confused about is the volume of how much air you're taking in. The volume remains the same. It's just that the speed slows down. So you're slightly controlling the breath from the beginning to the end on the inhale and on the exhale. And that's somewhere to start out with. For breathing, and that has an effect on the mind. It has a positive effect on the mind, and it has a pretty beneficial effect. It's very basic,
Right.
But it's very potent, I would say.
Right. Fantastic. Okay. What about insomnia? Is that also something that can?
Yes, insomnia. Again, if there's anxiety, there's going to be insomnia. So a lot of things get linked. Right. A lot of conditions are created. If you have one, you have the other, because one feeds the other. Once again, the tools that we teach, yoga, and within yoga, asana and pranayama, you're teaching specific kind of breathing styles to eliminate these conditions.
Right.
So yes, they are specifically.
When you spoke about decongesting the nervous system and decongesting the system, what exactly, that sounded really interesting. What is that?
I sometimes use words and I forget about them. So decongesting the nervous system, and I probably thought of that at the time when I was feeling a bit overwhelmed. There are times in your life when you're doing a lot and you feel like your nervous system is just buzzing.
Yeah. And it's on overload. And
it's on
just
overload.
Begging for you to calm down.
Exactly. And then the mind starts to create more thoughts and you just go berserk.
True.
Right?
Yeah.
So the breathing, a basic breathing technique will help decongest the nervous system. What that means is that your nervous system, which is vibrating a lot, will start to calm itself down.
Exactly. When somebody makes a remark and says, "Oh God, you're so edgy," or you're just so, what's wrong with you? You're just so emotional.
Yeah.
That's exactly that happening. And then, the different people. Everyone has different personality. Everyone has different sort of a way to react to situations. People who are a bit more emotional and a bit more, sensitive. What advice do you give to them?
So I do believe that each one of us is unique in nature, and that's beautiful, right? Emotionality means that you're more sensitive. You're more perceptive sometimes. So there's
you have
nothing.
empathy.
Yes, you have empathy. There's nothing wrong with it. It's just that whenever any aspect of you is out of balance, it creates disease. It creates a condition that is no longer serving you.
Right.
It's creating ill effects for you. So over emotionality, where you have no control of your mind, that becomes a problem.
Of course.
But in somebody who is well and empathetic and perceptive is fantastic. And another person who may not be perceptive or empathetic, but they're fully awake in other parts of themselves. They have other strengths.
Right.
That's fabulous too. We all need to be well, according to our constitution, and the same tools, but different. Like within the same tools, there are specific recipes for each one of us.
Right. So the creative people are amongst us.
Yes.
Because they have a heightened sense of sensitivity, and they're usually more perceptive to things around them. Hence the way that they're able to capture things and express them through, writing, poetry, art, music, dance, whatever. What about them? I mean, they really have to take care of themselves.
They do have to take care of themselves. Having said that, when you do these practices, if you are a poet if you're a business person, if you are a, an entrepreneur, your thinking becomes clearer. That's the other decongesting that's happening in the body. You're literally, within yoga, we say that our body has, a different, they're called nadis, right? So nadis are, you can sort of say, rivers of energy.
Okay.
You're clearing the flow of energy.
Right.
Right? So just imagine those people, any of us, be it a creative person, be it this person, if, they're coming to their bestest self, because they are all of a sudden thinking clearly, and then because of that, they're able to, if it's a poet, then he's going to be able to put words out there that are very touching, or he'll have clearer thinking to put out something that's close to his heart.
Right.
Same way other people.
Right. Fantastic.
Yeah.
That's really, really, really so interesting. And, unfortunately, we've run out of time, Nadia, so it's been absolutely wonderful having you on the program. Before we go, a message for our viewers.
Breath awareness.
Right. Okay.
And just being present to everything that happens now.
Being in the moment.
Being in the moment.
So many of us just can't do that.
That's correct. And I have to remind myself as well.
Yeah.
So keep reminding yourself to be present.
And also, just quickly, the impact of social media on our being in the now. What do you say?
Well, even if you are going to use social media and you're reading something, just be completely present to that, and then scroll down. If it's something that caught your attention, read it, absorb it, let every cell take it in.
Right.
If it's something important, something useful, take it in, wherever it's coming from. But with, even with relationships, don't just keep moving on. Just stay present and then move on. If it's 5 seconds, 10 seconds, 10 minutes.
Give your full attention.
Give your full attention.
Absolutely. Nadia Faruqi, thank you very much for being with us here today and for discussing such a fascinating subject.
Thank you. It was my pleasure.
Okay. All right then. And with that, we come to the end of today's program. That was really interesting. I really enjoyed talking to Nadia, our guest, about holistic well-being and how the mind, body and soul works together. It's so fascinating. And all the things that she's been talking about today also, they give you a sort of an eye-opener on those things that we've been taking for granted, or we're just ignoring how important it is to, be aware of what you're eating and eat intelligently. So until next week, stay happy, stay healthy. Bye-bye.